Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is day 15 of a build a day until they announce DLC. That's right, we're doing a build every single day until they announce DLC, a build or build related video. So if you want to see how far we can go with this, definitely hit that subscribe button. In the meantime, today we're doing the Antspur Rapiers and a dual status effect build. This is a really fun one that has a lot of power. We're using two Antspur Rapiers, which have innate rot on them. You can get them at the Shaded Castle at the Atlas Plateau. It's one per playthrough, but you can always have a friend or go on a forum. You probably easily get a second one dropped for you, because having two is awesome because we can put Ashes of War on them and they have the innate rot to begin with. The Ashes of War I chose for these two is Seppuku on my right hand, and then the left hand we're going for Poison Moth Flight. And yes, one of the previous patches, they did nerf status effects on dual wielding a bit, but even with that, it still procs pretty fast, still works quite well, and we're getting the boost from the Kindred of Rot's Exultation and the Lord of Blood's Exultation. So every time we proc bleed, or when we proc the poison or the rot, we're going to get a 20% damage boost, and we're building up some consecutive attack bonuses as well to turn this into a very strong, powerful build. There's going to be another build later in this video that you can do with these identical stats, and honestly, the build couldn't be more different from this one, so it's pretty awesome that you can do that build as well. And you can see there, we're on journey, I think, 4 or 5 with this character at this point. It's level 190, by the way, but I'm going to show you exactly what you can do with the 150 stats, because this is very doable at 150, and you're going to get completely comparable damage, because these are just quite ridiculous. The status effect build up, the poison, the rot, the fact that they're so quick and they can build up on those consecutive attacks gives us a very, very strong build that can take on almost any boss in Eldenring. And this is a very fun one to use as well, so I really like the one here because the Antspur Rapiers are really powerful in the sense that they can build up quick, but it's not just that, it's the fact that you can put any Ash of War on them. You don't have to go with the setup that I have here with Seppuku in your right hand and Poison Moth Flight in your left hand. There's actually a lot of Ashes of War that you can put on them. I think there's still a bug with Frost where it takes off the rot. I don't know if they patched that yet. But yeah, overall, these are one of the few rot weapons that you can put an Ash of War on, and there's a lot of variety in that too. So feel free to pick what you choose. I just found that these two are the most powerful for me. I think I already mentioned this, but I want to mention this one more time, that it is one per playthrough in the Atlas Plateau at the Shaded Castle. There's NPC Invader there. As far as weapons go, though, there's always forums and places you can go to trade people, so if you do play online, shouldn't be too bad getting a second one. Or if you go into New Game Plus, you can get a second one that way as well. But yeah, it's only one per playthrough. That's one of the only downsides, much like the Scavenger Curve sword build that I did, where you just get one throughout an entire playthrough. As far as I know, there's not a way to get a second one unless you go online and ask on a forum and trade with somebody, or if you go into New Game Plus. And then the Ashes we're using, Seppuku, obviously everybody knows where that is, in Mountaintops of the Giants. And then Poison Moth Flight, I believe you get in Caled. I think it might be the one that either drops from the Knights Cavalry that's there. By the way, we have the Knights Cavalry set on, or it's somewhere in Caled. But anyway, yeah, the Knights Cavalry set's a pretty cool set. You can get that in Consecrated Snowfield. It doesn't boost anything here, obviously, but it is a decent armor set that looks pretty cool. So you can see here, we're proccing stuff. We're getting the rot, poison, and bleed bonuses, giving us an additional 40% damage. We're building up on consecutive attacks, and this is a very powerful build that can obliterate bosses. And interestingly enough, combining these two builds is actually really interesting for me on my channel, because two of the earliest builds that I ever did on my channel were the status effect build. If you scroll all the way, and I don't, that might take you a bit, but yeah, if you scroll all the way, was the status effect build. And then the other one that I'm going to do in this video that you can do with identical stats, because we're using a quality weapon, or what basically is a quality weapon, is the Marais Executioner build, which I'm going to show at the end of this video. So it's kind of two of the early builds that I ever did on my channel, way back when, early summer last year, when I tried those out and I ended up posting them. Didn't really have a big audience at the time, and being able to put them together in one video is pretty awesome. Yeah, the Antspur Rapiers actually scale with a C in strength and dexterity. Now, you will get a little bit more damage out of dexterity despite the equal scaling there, but if you go with strength and you have that arcane, you're basically set up to use the Marais Executioner build, so any boss that's immune to status effects, you can absolutely obliterate them just by changing some talismans around, and since they both take boosts from consecutive and successive attack bonuses, they're very, very good to just swap out a couple of small talismans. Like obviously we're not going to use Lord of Bloods or Kindred of Rots. We'll switch that out for something like the Ritual Swords talisman and whatnot. But yeah, you're going to see that later. You can kind of use both these builds with this just by changing talismans around and having identical stats. For NPC invaders, this absolutely obliterates them. There's not really a ton to talk about here. These are absolutely very, very useful in terms of fighting any NPC invaders that are in the game, because you can basically stun lock them by spamming L1, get a whole bunch of status effects and damage boost, and completely obliterate them, and they kind of just vanish very quickly with this build. It's very good against them and bosses alike. For this setup, we have dual Antspur Rapiers, one with Seppuku, one with Poison Moth Flight. We have the Knight's Calvary set on, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Kindred of Rots Exultation, Millicent's Prosthesis, Lord of Blood's Exultation. Then we have the Thorny tier, and then the Fate tier for buffs as well. So for stats, I'm going to show you the 150 stats here in a second, but this is my character. If you're just leveling up like crazy in PvE, you basically want to pour as many points as you can into Strength and Arcane, because those are going to be your two primary stats for using the quality weapon, even though you're going to get slightly less than Dex, and then being able to switch to Marais Executioner without having to use a larval tear, which is a big deal, and I'm going to show you that build here in a second. And it's pretty awesome to be able to swap between two entirely different builds. Here's the 150 stats if you need to pause it. I've done this with just Strength and Arcane and minimum Dex requirements, and this build still absolutely shreds, so it's pretty awesome. And now we're going to switch on to the Marais Executioner build to do a ton of damage, and basically this thing just absolutely destroys. And eventually we're going to do a bigger build with this one where we buff it up even more, but I'm going to show you the setup and everything and what I can do to bosses with the same exact identical stats. And being able to do two entirely different builds is absolutely awesome. I mean, the fact that we're able to do two builds that are basically entirely different, and then anything that's immune to the status effects, you're going to be able to use Marais Executioner build on, and you can absolutely shred them with the Ash of War, which also builds up on consecutive attacks. Yeah, this is like basically just an awesome weapon to use. And again, we're eventually going to do a build where we buff this up. This is going to be one of the builds that I do, kind of a revamped version on an older build that's going to come up probably within the coming week or so, where we buff it up even more and turn it into something completely crazy. But for the base build here that I use, we have Marais Executioner plus 10, any seal will do. Knight's Calvary set on again, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Godfrey Icon Boost that's charged, Millicent's Prosthesis, Shard of Alexander, and then the consecutive attack tier, and then the faith tier for buffs as well. And I hope that helps. I hope being able to combine those two, and trust me, if you just invest in strength and minimum dex, you're still going to get all those status effects and still pretty comparable damage. I've done it before in the past without having the dex stat that I had in this video, and it still does great damage. It's a quality weapon after all, even though it leans slightly more towards dex. Being able to bring up your strength will bring the damage up because it scales with a C in strength as well. And that is day 15 of our build a day until they announce DLC. We're going to be doing a build or build type video every day until they announce DLC. We're going to see how far we can go with this. So definitely be sure to sub if you want to check that out. Be sure to check out all the awesome builds that are on the channel. There's going to be a whole bunch more to come. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys there.